Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Oh My God, I Didn't Realize Anybody Could Be That Stupid. And today we're going to be talking about Leo Venus. For those of you who don't know Leo Venus, he is the smarter, better-looking brother of John Venus. And I guess we have some more drama happening between us. So, Leo Venus uploaded a really terrible video where he was spreading misinformation about COVID. He claimed that everybody, or virtually everyone who has died from COVID, would have died anyways, and he believes that the pandemic hasn't resulted in a significant amount of worldwide excess deaths. He was also promoting this idea against vaccine and mask and social distancing mandates because, again, he believes this pandemic is essentially a joke and practically nobody is dying. So I thought that this misinformation was extremely concerning, and I tried to link Leo Venus up with Dr. Avi and set up a debate to try to make sure as many people as possible see that this is misinformation, and yes, we should certainly social distance and enforce mask and vaccine mandates. And what ended up happening was during a live stream last night, I got a notification on my phone that someone initiated a call in the group chat I created between myself, Leo Venus, and Dr. Avi. I don't know who initiated the call, but I just answered the notification on my phone. And during the live stream, I was just talking between Leo Venus, Dr. Avi, and myself about setting up a debate about COVID restrictions and all that between Dr. Avi and Leo Venus. Now, this conversation ended up turning into its own debate, and I guess that's what frustrated Leo Venus, because just a few hours ago, he uploaded a video calling Dr. Avi and I snakes. And he just made a series of nonsense complaints and lies about Dr. Avi and I and the nature of our conversation. So in typical fashion, I'm just going to go through Leo Venus's video and debunk each of his claims point by point.
Alrighty guys, time for a little bit of a weird video. So today I was unwillingly and unknowingly put into someone else's live stream on another YouTube channel, which is a lot bigger than this one, and made the two sound like I was saying things that I never said. I almost feel like I have to make a little response at least so that this just doesn't go unchallenged.
Okay, so first off, Leo Venus is claiming that he was unknowingly and unwillingly put on my live stream, and this private conversation was made public to hundreds of people without his consent. That is a lie. During the conversation between Leo Venus, Dr. Avi, and I ended up mentioning that this was on a live stream, and Leo Venus just said that he would have liked to have known earlier, but he's okay with that.
Okay, well, I think I'm just going to go back to my live stream because I'm live streaming right now, but you guys can kind of work out what you might be interested in debating. Just what I saw from your video was concerning. That's why I just hooked you up with Avi to see if we could work out some sort of debate.
Or maybe data access that the proposition that access globally access deaths have not increased.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Wait,
and
are we on a live stream right now?
Yeah, like I'm just talking into the phone.
Oh, okay, so like my voice and Avi's voice isn't on the
Oh no, you can hear it. I'm on speaker, but
Well, again, I don't have anything against that. Would have been nice to know that before you started streaming them.
Yeah, sure, sure, but and if there's anything else that you might want to learn about the pandemic, I'm sure Avi can help you out with that, like with the erectile dysfunction stuff. I'm sure you'd be interested in learning. But yeah, that specific point about excess deaths is definitely worth debating.
Yeah, I would be interested in seeing what the numbers or what the data you use for. And what you mean by significant.
So, as you could see, during that conversation, Leo said that he's fine with me live streaming that conversation. And by the way, that conversation went on for another 5 minutes. So you'd think if Leo had a problem with me live streaming that conversation, he would have said, okay, I don't approve of you live streaming this conversation, and he would have left the conversation right then and there, but he didn't. He said, okay, well, I'm fine with it. I would have liked you to have mentioned it earlier, but, I don't care. And you stayed in the chat with us. But now you're acting as if, oh, I didn't consent to this. I had no idea I was on a live stream. I didn't approve of it. So, Leo, you're clearly lying. You're either lying during that conversation or you're lying now. I'd just like to know when exactly you were lying. When were you lying, Leo? Was it then or is it now? Leo also claimed that Dr. Avi and I manipulated the conversation to make it seem as though he said things that he didn't say. That is also a lie. What actually happened was, in Leo's video about COVID, he made absolutely ridiculous claims that are demonstrably false, and then when Dr. Avi and I challenged him during this call, he ended up walking back his claims out of embarrassment. For instance, in Leo's original video, he claimed that COVID hasn't caused any additional excess deaths because everyone, or almost everyone, who has died of COVID would have died anyway, regardless of the pandemic.
So in order to get around the difficulty in finding information, I thought, what's the most big picture kind of perspective we can take on this? So let's actually check, what is the world population today, global world population? As of today, this video was being made the 1st of February 2022. I took the difference between today's population and the population in 2020, July 1st. There's 19 months apart in that time period. So I then divided by 19 and multiplied by 12 in order to get the average yearly global population increase over the last 1.5 years. And the number that comes out is actually just under 82 million, which matches exactly the global population growth over the years previous to COVID-19. So in other words, the world population is increasing at the exact same rate now as it was before the pandemic. Just answer me this question here. What kind of a terrible crisis where we are cowering inside, hiding ourselves away, living in fear of this dangerous virus that is killing and destroying everything in society, everyone's talking about it. What kind of crisis like that leaves us with no increase in overall mortality and with the exact same upward population curve as we had before the pandemic? If anybody can answer me that question, I'd be very interested in hearing your answer. Now again, this is not to take anything away from the people who have suffered with COVID or the people who have died with COVID. It is always sad when people die, but the fact is a lot of these people would have died with or without COVID. Death is a part of the life cycle.
So there you go. You can clearly see Leo Venus said that there hasn't been an increase in worldwide deaths due to COVID, and that is because most of the people who have died of COVID would have died anyway from some other cause. Now, when Dr. Avi and I pressed him on this issue, he completely changed his tune and he lied. He claimed that he never stated this and he retracted that statement.
In terms of, the morals and what I decide to do with my life and what I think we should do, that's I think the only place where we would disagree, because the numbers are the numbers. I don't think I'm going to disagree with that.
Okay, well, regardless of what your opinion is on like what we should do with the pandemic, just some of the information that you shared in your recent COVID video, it was concerning and it was certainly misinformation. So I think
let me know what was misinformation of those.
Oh, well, the stuff about excess deaths, that the pandemic isn't causing as much harm as you think it is, like that was clearly misinformation, especially the specific point about excess deaths. That was just dead wrong.
Well, again, why do you think that there is no excess, or there is a huge excess mortality during the COVID years?
Because there is.
What the data shows.
Well, it's like saying, how do you think global warming is a thing? Well, it's because the Earth is fucking warming. That's...
Well, and it also depends what do you mean by a huge increase? For me, if we're talking about, again...
Well, that's a different normative claim. Like, you could maybe think a massive increase in deaths has to be in the order of billions versus millions. But the specific claim you made is that there aren't any excess deaths. So there's a difference there.
There aren't any experts. The global mortality has not significantly changed. And that's what the numbers show.
Well, you specifically stated in your video.
I'm not sure how. Why? I don't know how you would find that. Like how.
Well, Leo, like the specific claim you made in your video was that the people who have died of COVID would have died anyway, whether COVID was present or not, and there was not. Yeah, well, the video. Okay, well, the video's up, and we can just see it for ourselves. But the statement you made was that the people who have died of COVID so far would have died anyway. On the aggregate, the majority, maybe not every single case, but you at least suggested the majority, and you argued that there has not been excess deaths post-pandemic. So that's completely separate from like some sort of normative statement that 5 million deaths is not significant. So what you consider significant or not is, yeah.
The two things I would say there is, number one, I do not think that most people, what I said in the video, if I remember correctly, and again, we can double check if this is a big deal, but I think what I remember saying is that the reason that this number might seem more scary than perhaps it should, and again, that's a normative statement, is because, yes, a lot or most of the deaths have occurred in people who are at risk, of course. And some of them definitely would have died anyways. And the global deaths in general have not significantly gone up during the pandemic.
They've gone up. They have significantly gone up. That's not true. We can disagree. That's fine. That could be something we could debate.
So, Leo, Dr. Avi and I didn't lie or manipulate this conversation in any way to make it seem as though you said something that you didn't actually say. You just kept altering your statements once we made you realize that your opinions are absolutely stupid. The fact is, this pandemic has caused a significant increase in worldwide deaths, and the vast majority of people who have died of COVID would have still been alive if this pandemic never happened, as you later ended up admitting to. But please, continue to embarrass yourself.
So let's go right into it. The person I'm talking about is Richard from Vegan Gains. Some of you might know him already. He has a YouTube channel that covers a lot of vegan stuff, and he's been doing it for a while. He's quite a big YouTube channel. I've talked to him a few times before. I've had a debate on his channel. Let's just say he's an example of a rather extreme set of vegans who portray the vegan lifestyle in a very special way, which maybe I do not think is the optimal way of spreading veganism. So that's where our disagreements have stemmed from before. Just to set the stage, I recently made a video on COVID-19 where I was saying that I do not endorse all this fear and panicking, the hysteria that is going around, and that the COVID situation isn't as severe as the media will have you believe. And the intent behind that video was to try to help people come out of this hysteria mode, right? To allow people to relax, to allow people to look at things a little bit more rationally and start living their lives again without all this fear and all this guilt that is actually impacting a lot of people's mental health and physical health.
Yeah, so again, Leo, the problem here is that your video was in no way rational. You claimed that this pandemic did not cause an increase in worldwide deaths, which is demonstrably false, and your rationale for this was that the majority of people who have died of COVID would have died anyway, which again is a statement that you ended up retracting, and you admitted that the majority of people who have died of COVID would have still been alive if this pandemic never happened.
Now this morning I was messaged by Vegan Gains saying that he and the Dr. Avi, who's another vegan influencer, he has a lot of debate videos on his channel, and they were talking about they want to make a debate with me. Just to be as transparent as possible, I'm going to be putting the picture of the conversation on Facebook here so you can see exactly what was being written. I had no idea what kind of debate they were talking about. I had no idea what was going on. I said, yeah, I'm sure that we can have a chat, no problem. And so I got on the phone with Richard and Dr. Avi, and straight away there was almost this combative vibe to the whole conversation. Here are some of the clips to the conversation from the live stream, which, by the way, I did not know I was on.
Well, in Leo's video, he was basically saying the amount of deaths that occurred from coronavirus so far are minuscule.
Let me ask you this: with the amount of deaths so far and the infection rate and the IFRs, like, do you think the mask and vaccine mandates are justified now?
No.
Okay, maybe that. I don't know if you'd want to debate that.
Now you're going back to a normative. See, that's like Leo. You just said a normative proposition. Like again, like when you say you're against the mandate for vaccines, like I grant that.
Okay, so a descriptive. Give me a couple examples.
Do you understand why I'm doing this, right? Like the point is just that, like, I just don't find it interesting. It's just gonna be fucking boring. It's not gonna be. We're not gonna make progress on it. Like now, maybe it'll be entertaining for the audience, but I mean, I'm kind of getting bored of those type of debates personally.
I don't really necessarily even care or want to do a debate. But, you guys just contacted me, so if you have something you want to debate, go ahead. Let me know. But again, this is I'm just.
Yeah, you might want to.
I should tell you, Leo. One thing I should tell you is I think that you probably know this, but I think that view is absolutely nuts. It's crazy. It's like a horrifically evil view to me.
Which view?
The view that no matter how many people die, that would have been saved otherwise. Freedom regardless. Freedom.
Well, I never said that, so
And remember, this is out of the blue. I haven't talked to these people for months, and this is just out of nothing. Get on a call, and this is how they're talking to me.
Leo, as everyone can see, Dr. Avi and I were both very respectful to you. We weren't being rude. We didn't have any kind of condescending tone. We weren't saying all of your ideas were stupid and you're an idiot. We were just expressing our disagreements, and we were also trying to work out exactly what we disagree on so that we can set up a future debate. Are you emotionally mature enough to handle criticism and understand that other people have differing views than you? If anybody tells you that they disagree with something you say, do you immediately take offense to that regardless of the context? And again, Leo, you keep complaining that I live streamed this conversation when we've already established that I told you during the conversation that it was being live streamed. You told us that you had no problem with it being live streamed, and you stayed in the conversation with us for another 5 minutes after I told you it was being live streamed. Again, if anybody wants to verify this, you can go check out the full conversation. I uploaded it to my channel for everybody to view in its entirety, if you don't believe me. So, Leo, if you had a problem with this being live streamed, why didn't you tell us then and there? Why didn't you tell us that you didn't approve of it being live streamed, and why didn't you just immediately leave? So it's clear that you only have a problem with this conversation being recorded now because you realize you made yourself look foolish, and you're only making yourself look more foolish by coming up with more stupid lies and bullshit and ridiculous complaints and whining and like this emotionally insecure fucking child. So if you don't want to look like a fool, Leo, here's some advice. Delete this video and delete your stupid COVID video.
Just listen to the way that the communication is happening. Listen to the vibe, listen to the intonation behind some of these things that are being said.
The point I'm trying to get at is here.
I'm talking about the real world. I would never.
But I'm not for a very good reason. There's a good reason I'm not talking because these hypotheticals that are not real world are sometimes even more useful than real world scenarios.
Okay, Leo, I don't know what to tell you. I think most people watching that footage would understand that we're being respectful and we're just trying to ask you questions. We're trying to explain our viewpoints, and we're just trying to make a, solid argument against some of your viewpoints. If you feel like we're being condescending, rude, combative, and you feel personally offended, I don't fucking care. Your feelings don't matter. I don't give a shit if you feel personally hurt in some way. The only thing I care about is the facts, and you are spreading dangerous misinformation that is just demonstrably false, and I was trying to set up a debate to prove that what you are saying is nonsense. If you have a personal issue with that, too fucking bad.
And this was a little bit strange, this kind of obsession with just doing hypothetical situations in our call. I like to deal in the real world. I like to deal with real situations.
This isn't answering the question either. I just acknowledge that it's not answering the question.
What is your question? If back in a hypothetical where 100% of people would die if we didn't vaccinate, would I want the mandate? Is that your question?
Unless we universally mandate it for everyone, would you be in favor of universal mandates, or would you insist on maintaining the freedom of everyone? That's a funny question.
So this is a weird weaselly lie, and Leo's also taking this whole situation out of context. So first of all, the only reason Dr. Avi was asking Leo Venus these hypothetical questions was because Leo Venus was making normative ethical claims about the pandemic mandates, and Dr. Avi was trying to understand Leo Venus's normative ethical position. And the best way to understand somebody's normative ethical position is to ask them hypothetical questions like this. And secondly, Dr. Avi actually had no interest in having a normative ethical debate. He actually wanted a debate about descriptive claims you made, and what's funny is, when we were trying to argue about descriptive statements you made, you kept coming back to making normative ethical claims.
Yeah, again, mine is like the simplest numbers you could use, actually. I'm just looking at exactly how much has the world population gone up by every year, and we're at exactly 82, just under 82 million per year, which is the exact rate.
But did you look at like which countries are updating those numbers and which countries are looking at birth rates? Like, because looking at the population number, it's like that doesn't tell you excess deaths. Like that could just be compensated by increased birth.
Yeah, perhaps we've had 13 million more births last year. Who knows?
Well, I mean, to that point, people have been together more often. I mean, maybe I don't think that, but maybe I don't know. But the point is that that's not the point. The point is that it's a more direct measurement to look at excess deaths or to try to calculate that directly than just infer it from populations, especially because censuses are taken. Some countries don't take censuses that often. Some countries take. It's just an analysis of looking at what you're trying to answer is going to be a lot better than inferring it from a different variable.
Well, since we're on the live stream, then I might as well just say that to make it very clear. My stance is that the role of doctors, the role of public health agencies, the role of organizations aren't to tell people how to live or how to what decisions they must make, but instead inform and allow people to make informed decisions. And but in the end of the day, people have to be allowed to take, if they are aware of the risks, they have to be allowed to take whichever risk.
Right, sure, but like that's a normative claim. So I don't know if you're still going to be interested in debating.
Notice the retreat to the normativity as soon as we drill down into the descriptive.
Yeah.
So Leo, you're acting as if Dr. Avi was being unreasonable by asking you hypothetical questions when this is just a normal way to understand somebody's normative ethical position, and Dr. Avi wasn't even interested in a normative ethical debate. The only reason, these hypothetical questions and these normative ethical questions ended up getting asked was because of you. Dr. Avi was trying to set up a descriptive debate, but you kept bringing up normative ethical claims. So you keep, blaming us for misrepresenting your views, being unreasonable, coming up with weird arguments, when you're to blame for this. You are the one being unclear, you are the one bringing up these points, you are the one being foolish, but you're blaming us for all of this.
Now this is where this video gets kind of funny, because as soon as Vegan Gains start talking, he already starts misrepresenting what I said in my video. So here's a few examples.
Well, in your video, you were saying that you don't really trust the CDC recommendations for classifying COVID deaths. That would actually be a really good topic to debate, because Leo doesn't really seem to understand causal versus contributory. Oh, yeah. Actually, Leo literally stated that virtually everyone who's died from COVID would have died anyway. The way you stated it, I think you might have forgotten, but the way you stated it, you said virtually everyone who has died from COVID so far would have died anyway. The way you worded it is mostly. And you're talking about elderly people who are already sick,
So again, this is just complete nonsense. I did not misrepresent Leo's claims. I already showed clips of some of these statements he made. Leo, in his original COVID video, claimed that COVID has not increased the amount of worldwide deaths, and this is because, in his words, it is because the majority of people who have died from COVID would have died anyway. This is a statement he made in his original video that he later retracted once he realized he looked foolish. I've already showed the clips of this. I'm not going to go and verify all of those statements and show you what Leo actually said. His video's still up. You can go and see for yourself.
Let's play the clip where I was talking.
A lot of these people would have died with or without COVID.
You said virtually everyone who has died from COVID so far would have died anyway. Like, the way you worded it is mostly.
A lot of these people would have died with or without COVID.
And this is the issue with being misunderstood on social media, because a lot of people will take what you say very loosely. And as Richard is doing here, he is taking what I say and putting in words that I never used to give an entire different meaning to what I said. And then he turns around and says that that is the literal thing I said, and saying it with such confidence that it couldn't be wrong.
So I guess I'm going to have to clarify this because Leo is just trying to confuse you all, and he's taking what he said very much out of context and taking what I said very much out of context. So in Leo's original video where he was talking about COVID, he claimed that there has not been an increase in worldwide deaths, and his explanation for this was that the majority of people who have died from COVID would have died anyway. Those two things together, those two beliefs put together, make sense. There could not be an increase in worldwide deaths if the people who have died from COVID would have died anyway. He's assuming that, okay, the people who died of COVID also had cancer, but if COVID wasn't there, they would have also died of cancer anyway. That's his rationale for believing that there hasn't been an increase in worldwide deaths. Now, the problem with this is, later, when we were having our little discussion and debate, he said that, oh, no, now I believe that the people who have died from COVID would have been alive if COVID wasn't around. Well, now that doesn't make any sense. How could there not be an increase in worldwide deaths if the people who have died from COVID would have otherwise been alive? So what Leo is doing is he is taking a small snippet of what he said and taking it out of the context in which it was said. When he said, a lot of the people who have died from COVID would have died anyway, what he meant was, his rationale for believing that there hasn't been an increase in worldwide deaths is that the majority of the people who have died would have died anyway. So, Leo, like, again, these claims don't make any sense. There has, in fact, been an increase in worldwide deaths, and you now admit that the majority of the people who have died from COVID would have still been alive. Like, what exactly are you trying to argue? None of these ideas you have now are congruent with one another, and it just seems like you're trying to play this game where you don't have to admit you're wrong.
What do you guys think about this? Was this a good move on Richard's part, just to throw me in a live stream without me even having any clue that I'm being recorded at the moment? It's a bit of a sneaky move. I didn't know there were vegans in Slytherin.
Again, Leo, during the conversation, I told you that this was being live streamed, and you told us you had no problem with it, so I don't understand why you keep going on and on about this and complaining. Okay, I can understand that maybe that was discourteous of me, but it's not like we were even talking about anything like really private where you're spilling your guts out about your personal problems, your love life, drug use, like something that can actually seriously compromise you socially or legally or anything. We were just having a friendly discussion, arguing about some things and trying to set up a debate. Why the fuck do you care so much? Like, again, Leo, this clearly isn't about me being discourteous and not mentioning that I was live streaming. This is about you feeling embarrassed and being made a fool of. Well, again, Leo, if you don't want to look like a fool, then maybe you should take down this video and you should take down your ridiculous fucking COVID video.
I think both of these two guys do represent a portion of the vegan movement, which is a little bit more extreme, right? This kind of pointing, judging, like telling people how they should be, telling people they're wrong, and being very, very direct and very impolite about things. And
so, Leo, again, I don't give a shit about your feelings. I only care about facts, and the fact is you said something remarkably fucking stupid, and I was just trying to point out that what you said was wrong. So if you cannot handle criticism and you are that emotionally immature, then maybe you should just get your mommy to manage your social media and your Facebook friends list and sit at the kids' table from now on.
it's not really something I'm a big fan of. I don't think that's the most effective route to promoting this lifestyle, and especially this area of combining judgment, combining shaming with all the misrepresentation, right? All the misunderstanding, all the assumptions that are being made incorrectly by someone with very little information, putting words into my mouth and saying that I'm meaning something when I clearly never said that.
Yeah, and this non-judgmental, non-shaming approach to activism just coincidentally happens to come from someone whose brother is an ex-vegan who happily supports an animal holocaust. Leo, I don't understand why I would be expected to treat a Nazi with respect, and I don't understand why I'd be expected to treat a meat eater with respect when they're one and the same. The only difference between a meat eater and a Nazi is the species of their victim. But if you want to be friends with Nazis, then that's your fucking prerogative.
This is something that I definitely don't think is very helpful, and I do know that is a recurring theme with Richard, I remember.
Yeah, Leo, and I don't think it's very helpful to spread misinformation and lie, and a reoccurring theme that I see from both the Venus brothers is whenever they're criticized and can't handle it, they cry about how their fifis are hurt.
I have no problem with being put on a live stream. Again, I'm a very public person. I share almost everything. And
yeah, that's why you keep bringing it up and complaining about it.
so the impression I'm getting from the phone call and from previous experiences with both of these guys to a certain extent is that they're idealists, right? They do believe that there is one right way to do things, and that putting facts and shoving figures and shoving information onto people is enough to make them change. They seem to be a little bit oblivious to the emotional aspect of human beings, the psychology of persuasion, the communication strategies that are necessary.
Leo, intelligent people are persuaded by facts and figures and the best available information. And the fact is, you're spreading misinformation about COVID, particularly about your claims that COVID hasn't resulted in an increase in worldwide deaths. Avi and I were trying to persuade you otherwise, and we were trying to set up a debate on the topic, and your refusal to accept facts and your excuse that we weren't being emotionally sensitive towards you only proves that you're an emotionally insecure child who shouldn't be taken seriously. Leo, if you can't handle somebody showing you research, talking about facts and figures, and proving you wrong, then maybe you shouldn't talk about adult topics, maybe you shouldn't talk about adult topics with adults, and you should just sit at the fucking kids' table.
I think Dr. Avi doesn't work with patients, maybe for the best in terms of the communication aspect. I think, again, good intentions, but that could definitely be improved.
Yeah, Dr. Avi does work with patients, and he's clearly a better communicator than you, because the only response you can ever come up with to anything we say is, wah!
But again, nothing personal. This is just my impression from the call, and I feel, again, a duty that I have to put out the word that this is not what I mean. I do not mean that there are no deaths due to COVID. I do not mean that every single person that died of COVID would have died anyways if COVID wasn't a thing. And the excess mortality that I was talking about not seeing any big changes in was the overall global mortality. The death rate in the world has not significantly gone up from the numbers that I've seen.
So this is just a straw man. No one accused you of believing that every single death that has been attributed to COVID would have happened anyway, and COVID hasn't caused any actual deaths. What you clearly did say in your video was that there has not been an increase in worldwide deaths, which is a position you still hold, which is untrue, by the way, and a statement that you later retracted that you did make in your original video, albeit perhaps implicitly, was that you believe that the majority of deaths that have occurred from COVID would have happened anyway, and that's how you rationalized your belief that there has not been an increase in worldwide deaths due to COVID. So, Leo, I don't care about your fucking feelings. I don't care if you think I'm rude. I don't care if you hate me or anything. So, the fact is you're wrong. If you want to debate me, if you want to debate Dr. Avi, just contact us and we can prove you wrong again and make you look foolish. And if you like this video, maybe consider supporting me on Patreon or becoming a member. I have some perks you may find interesting. If you're looking for vegan cat or dog food or vegan pet accessories, check out Vigor. If you click the link in the description and use the discount code, you can get 10% off of any order. If you want to see me naked or my wife naked, check out our OnlyFans. Links are in the description. And as always, keep making those vegan gains.
What a relief. When will this poisonous product cease? This is another public service announcement. You can believe it or you can doubt it. Let us begin now with the cow. The way it gets to your plate and how.